It is one of America's greatest mysteries. What happened to three men after they pulled off the most daring prison break in 1962?
Alcatraz has long fascinated the world with its haunting reputation as America's most notorious prison. Perched on a rocky island in the San Francisco Bay, it's been a symbol of isolation, iron bars, and impenetrable escape attempts. But beyond the familiar stories of mobsters and infamous inmates, recent discoveries have shed shocking new light on this fortress of mystery. Hidden tunnels, forgotten artifacts, and underground systems buried beneath decades of secrecy are now being unearthed, and the findings are rewriting everything we thought we knew. Scientists and historians alike are baffled, uncovering evidence that ties into secret military operations, indigenous resistance, and even Cold War espionage. These aren't just historical footnotes. They are game-changing revelations that are rocking the foundations of Alcatraz's legacy. The origins of Alcatraz. Alcatraz's origins stretch far beyond its infamous prison era, rooted instead in military strategy and hidden intrigue. Known initially as La Isla de los Alcatrazes, or Island of the Pelicans, the rocky outcrop was named by Spanish explorer Juan Manuel de Ayala in 1775. Its transformation into a military asset began in the mid-1800s, particularly during the height of the California gold rush. As San Francisco rapidly expanded and gold wealth flooded in, the U.S. government grew concerned about protecting the bay from potential threats. Alcatraz's isolated and elevated location made it ideal for fortification. By the 1850s, the island was armed with more than 100 cannons, forming a key part of a coastal defense system. These massive artillery installations turned Alcatraz into a formidable military outpost meant to deter naval attacks and assert control over access to the bay. But recent discoveries suggest there was more to the island than visible fortifications. Historians and researchers have uncovered 19th-century maps and military records indicating that beneath Alcatraz's original citadel may lie a network of hidden chambers. Once believed to be simple ammunition storage rooms, these underground areas are now thought to have supported classified operations, possibly involving secret communications or intelligence work. This new perspective casts Alcatraz not only as a guardian of gold, but also as a silent witness to covert military activities. These findings invite a re-evaluation of Alcatraz's early role in American history. Long before it became a prison for the nation's most dangerous criminals, the island may have served as a hub of strategic deception and defense. Its rocky cliffs, hiding more than just soldiers and cannons, military secrets, and underground tunnels. Beneath the surface of Alcatraz Island lies a hidden labyrinth that predates its infamous prison era, a network of military tunnels and chambers shrouded in mystery. These underground structures, dating back to the mid-19th century, were part of the original military fortifications built when Alcatraz served as a strategic defense post for the San Francisco Bay. For decades, these features were assumed lost or destroyed, buried beneath layers of concrete during the prison's construction, but recent surveys using ground-penetrating radar, GPR, have revealed their surprising preservation. The scans have uncovered sealed vaults, iron doors corroded with age, and ventilation shafts, some in remarkably intact condition. What stands out to researchers is the absence of many of these features from official military blueprints and records. This discrepancy raises unsettling questions. Why were these tunnels never documented? And why were they so carefully concealed? The architecture hints at more than simple storage use. Some believe these chambers may have housed experimental military technology or served as secure holding areas during sensitive operations. Their construction suggests a deliberate effort to hide or obscure their existence, fueling speculation about possible covert activities. Were these tunnels part of a classified intelligence operation? Did they serve as hidden transport routes or secure communication lines during wartime? While definitive answers remain elusive, the rediscovery of these underground structures has reignited interest in Alcatraz's lesser-known military history. It suggests the island's role as a fortress extended beyond defense, perhaps into the realm of secret operations and strategic deception. As investigations continue, these forgotten tunnels may reveal that Alcatraz's legacy is far more complex than its prison walls suggest, offering a tantalizing glimpse into the shadowy side of American military history. The prison era. When Alcatraz was converted into a federal penitentiary in 1934, it quickly gained notoriety as the ultimate escape-proof prison. Surrounded by frigid, fast-moving waters and isolated from the mainland, the island was designed to house the most dangerous and unmanageable inmates in the U.S. penal system. Yet, beneath its harsh reputation lay a paradox. Many aspects of life on Alcatraz were more orderly and humane than in other prisons of the era. Unlike overcrowded facilities elsewhere, Alcatraz provided each inmate with a private cell, 3 consistent meals a day, and access to basic medical care. However, this rigid structure came at a cost. Inmates lived under constant surveillance and followed a strict schedule that allowed little freedom or interaction. The psychological burden of such monotony and enforced solitude often proved more punishing than any physical barrier. Recently declassified government documents from the 1950s have introduced a chilling new layer to Alcatraz's history. These reports suggest that prison officials may have conducted unofficial experiments in isolation and psychological endurance. Prolonged solitary confinement was reportedly used not only as punishment, but also to observe its long-term effects on mental health. Though not formally recognized as research at the time, the structure and detail of these records hint at early, ethically ambiguous forays into behavioral science. This perspective shifts the narrative of Alcatraz from a place of mere punishment to one of psychological testing. If true, it means the prison may have doubled as an experimental lab cloaked in the guise of security. Inmates weren't just serving time. They may have unknowingly contributed to studies on human resilience, isolation, and psychological control, deepening the prison's dark legacy beyond its steel bars and concrete walls. Escape attempts. Over the 29 years that Alcatraz operated as a federal prison, 1934 to 1963, it witnessed 14 known escape attempts involving 36 inmates. Despite its reputation as escape-proof, these attempts ranged from desperate acts of defiance to highly coordinated operations. While none were officially successful, several remain shrouded in mystery. The first escape attempt occurred on April 27, 1936. Inmate Joe Bowers, while burning trash near the incinerator, suddenly climbed a fence along the island's edge. Ignoring orders to come down, he was shot by a guard and fell to his death on the rocky shore. An act of defiance likely rooted more in desperation than strategy. In 1937, a more elaborate attempt unfolded when inmates Ralph Rowe and Theodore Cole filed through prison bars and escaped into heavy fog. Though they were presumed drowned, their bodies were never recovered, prompting decades of speculation. Other attempts included a violent workshop attack in 1938, a failed 5-man breakout in 1939, and various attempts using clever tactics, disguises, drain pipes, and even a stolen military uniform. In 1943, 2 inmates known as the Spider-Men used a makeshift rope and raincoat flotation devices. Despite reaching the water, they were quickly caught or drowned. One of the most infamous events was the 1946 Battle of Alcatraz, when 6 inmates seized weapons, taking guards hostage in a 2-day standoff. 2 correctional officers and 3 inmates died. 2 surviving attackers were later executed at San Quentin. The 1962 escape attempt by Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin became the basis for the film Escape from Alcatraz. Using dummy heads, a raft made of raincoats, and hours of planning, they disappeared into the night. Though presumed drowned, no bodies were found. Their fate remains one of Alcatraz's greatest mysteries. Despite popular myths, the waters around Alcatraz were not filled with man-eating sharks. The real dangers were the frigid temperatures, 55 degrees Celsius, swift currents, and the 1.25-mile swim to shore. While some civilians, including children and athletes, have successfully made the swim, prisoners lacked the training, preparation, and timing to match such feats. In the end, whether anyone truly escaped Alcatraz remains unresolved. Officially, no one made it, but 5 men are still listed as missing and presumed drowned. Robert Stroud. Robert Stroud, famously known as the Birdman of Alcatraz, is often remembered as a misunderstood genius who cared for birds and studied their diseases. But the truth is more complex and potentially more unsettling. Despite his nickname, Stroud never kept birds while imprisoned at Alcatraz. The birds, which he became known for, were part of his earlier sentence at Leavenworth Penitentiary, where he raised and studied canaries. What's now coming to light, however, is that his work may have gone far beyond avian care. Newly released documents have revealed that during his time at Leavenworth, Stroud requested and obtained a surprising array of scientific equipment. His list included lab-grade glassware, fermentation tanks, pipettes, and chemical reagents, tools far more advanced than what was necessary for basic bird care. While officials believed, or were told, these materials were for studying bird diseases, some experts now speculate otherwise. According to several researchers, Stroud may have been conducting rudimentary biochemical or pharmaceutical experiments. Specifically, there's evidence suggesting he was exploring early forms of antibiotic development, possibly experimenting with mold cultures and fermentation processes similar to those used in the production of penicillin. This theory is supported by handwritten notes discovered among Stroud's personal effects, which include fermentation recipes and references to bacterial growth cycle topics well beyond amateur biology. When Stroud was transferred to Alcatraz in 1942, many assumed it was simply due to disciplinary issues and the federal government's desire to tighten control over his activities. But with Alcatraz's far stricter environment and limited access to supplies, some now believe the transfer was a strategic move to halt or better monitor his unauthorized experiments. While there's no confirmed proof that Stroud ever produced antibiotics or engaged in classified research, the circumstantial evidence is strong enough to raise eyebrows. His legacy as the Birdman may be only part of the story. Beneath the surface, Stroud could have been a self-taught biochemist operating in the shadows of the prison system, using his time and intellect not just to care for birds, but to push the boundaries of science from behind bars. The 1962 escape. The 1962 escape from Alcatraz has long been cloaked in mystery, marked by speculation, conspiracy theories, and a nagging question: did Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, actually survive? For decades, the official line held that the 3 men drowned in the frigid waters of San Francisco Bay. But new scientific evidence is beginning to challenge that narrative in compelling ways. In a remarkable development, a team of Dutch scientists specializing in hydrodynamics and forensic geolocation used advanced software to reconstruct the tide and current conditions on the night of June 11, 1962. Their findings revealed a crucial 20-minute window between 11:30 p.m. and 11:50 p.m., during which the currents would have carried a makeshift raft north toward the Marin headlands. If the men had timed their departure with precision and paddled strategically, they could have reached shore alive. This directly contradicts decades of belief that escape was a death sentence due to the strong currents and frigid water. But the mystery doesn't stop there. In 1975, a car was registered in Brazil under the name John Anglin. Investigators who later followed up on the lead authenticated the registration using old DMV files, and handwriting analysts confirmed that the signature closely matched John Anglin's prison records. While intriguing, the discovery wasn't enough for the FBI to close the case. Then, in 2016, a private investigator unearthed a storage unit in Florida that had been quietly rented under a different Anglin family alias. Inside were personal effects and documents tied to the brothers' items believed to have been untouched for decades. So why hasn't this turned into global news? Simply put, without definitive physical proof, such as bodies, photos, or verified contact, the case remains open and unresolved, as officially stated by the FBI. It's a historical enigma still awaiting closure. Meanwhile, modern technology continues to peel back the layers of Alcatraz's secrets. In 2019, researchers from Binghamton University partnered with the National Park Service to perform thermal imaging scans of the island. Their findings shocked even longtime experts. Beneath the old recreation yard, thought to be solid ground, they identified a network of heat-retaining voids. These weren't just random air pockets. The thermal signatures were consistent with man-made rooms and corridors. This discovery aligns with recently declassified government documents from the 1950s that referenced emergency preparedness drills and Cold War-era infrastructure upgrades. These drills weren't limited to obvious military bases. Coastal facilities, including Alcatraz, were considered potential fallout shelters or command outposts. The voids beneath the yard appear to match the layout of storage rooms, or even bunkered sleeping quarters, suggesting that Alcatraz may have been more than just a prison. It might have been part of a national defense strategy. Whether aiding an infamous escape or hiding Cold War secrets, Alcatraz continues to defy its reputation as a simple prison island. Each new discovery blurs the line between legend and reality, inviting us to rethink everything we thought we knew about one of America's most iconic sites. Ground-penetrating radar reveals the unseen. In 2018, researchers employing ground-penetrating radar, GPR, uncovered remarkable evidence beneath Alcatraz's surface, proof that the island holds far more secrets than previously imagined. Scanning beneath the old prison yard and remnants of the original military citadel, the team detected a series of hidden structures that had been buried and forgotten for decades. These included intact underground passageways, sealed doorways, and, most intriguingly, metallic compartments lined with what appears to be electromagnetic shielding. This kind of shielding is highly unusual for the 19th century, when the citadel was constructed. Experts suggest it was added much later, likely during the Cold War, pointing to a phase of Alcatraz's history that remains undocumented and largely unexplored. The presence of such shielding implies the need to contain or protect something highly sensitive, be it electromagnetic signals, classified materials, or hazardous substances. Some researchers believe these chambers may have been tied to radio surveillance operations, possibly used to monitor maritime or military communications across the bay during a tense geopolitical period. Others speculate more ominously that the compartments were designed to house experimental, chemical, or biological substances, perhaps as part of clandestine defense research. What's most telling is the complete lack of official records detailing these modifications. If the shielding and structural reinforcements were indeed installed mid-century, it suggests a covert military or government purpose beyond incarceration. Alcatraz may have quietly played a role in broader national security strategies, using its isolated and fortified setting to conceal operations from the public eye. This discovery redefines our understanding of the island. Alcatraz wasn't just a prison or an old fort. It may have been a Cold War-era facility operating under a veil of secrecy, with functions and missions historians are only beginning to uncover. Paranormal reports, backed by science? Alcatraz has long been associated with ghost stories and paranormal legends, particularly in the infamous D Block, where prisoners were subjected to extreme isolation. While many dismiss these tales as folklore, recent scientific investigations suggest there may be more to the story than superstition. In 2021, a multidisciplinary team of physicists and environmental scientists conducted a series of controlled tests on the island, focusing on electromagnetic frequency (EMF) levels in D Block, the section known for housing the harshest solitary confinement cells. Their findings were startling. They recorded unusual and erratic EMF fluctuations, far beyond what would be expected from background levels or outdated electrical wiring. These patterns were consistent with those recorded in other sites, frequently reported as paranormally active, raising questions about whether something unique is occurring at a physical level. The team also observed a chilling anomaly in cell 14D, one of the most feared cells among former inmates. Using high-resolution thermal sensors, they documented a rapid temperature drop of over 20 degrees Fahrenheit, occurring within seconds and without any natural airflow or open ventilation. The door to the cell was sealed, and there was no mechanical explanation for such an abrupt change. Some researchers suggest these readings could be signs of residual energy, a theory in paranormal science that trauma or intense emotion can imprint on a physical location. Others are exploring whether the dense rock and thick concrete walls of Alcatraz might actually store electromagnetic energy, unintentionally creating an environment that affects human perception and physiology. While no definitive claims of ghosts can be made, the scientific data is enough to give skeptics pause. Alcatraz may not just be a place of historical suffering, it might also be a site where the emotional and energetic residue of that suffering still lingers, waiting to be fully understood. Echoes from the past. From 1969 to 1971, Alcatraz was the site of a bold and symbolic act. A 19-month occupation by Native American activists from the group Indians of All Tribes. Their goal was to reclaim the island under the Treaty of Fort Laramie, demanding it be transformed into a Native American cultural center and education hub. While the occupation eventually ended without the government conceding their demands, its cultural and political impact resonated far beyond the island. But the activists may have tapped into something deeper than politics, something spiritual. Recent research combining indigenous oral history, geological studies, and spiritual anthropology points to a long-standing belief among some native tribes that Alcatraz was historically a place of banishment. According to several tribal elders, it was known as the island where spirits wander, a location associated with isolation, spiritual disconnection, and unresolved souls. This belief takes on chilling significance when viewed through the lens of what Alcatraz became: a military fort, then a high-security prison, and finally, a Cold War site possibly linked to secret experiments. The trauma embedded in the island's concrete, from solitary confinement to failed escapes, adds weight to the notion that Alcatraz carries a psychic burden. Some spiritual researchers suggest that the convergence of forced banishment, suffering, and political resistance has imprinted the land with what is referred to as a spiritual echo. Even today, visitors report feelings of unease, heaviness, or disorientation, particularly around areas like D Block and the Citadel ruins. While difficult to measure scientifically, these experiences line up eerily with indigenous beliefs passed down for generations. The Native American occupation didn't just bring attention to indigenous rights, it also reawakened questions about what Alcatraz really is, not just geographically or politically, but spiritually. The island continues to speak, not just through history books, but through the energies still felt on its haunted shores. What do you think was Alcatraz hiding more than just prisoners? Could something even more sinister have been buried, both physically and historically, on that island? Let us know in the comments. We read every one. If this video opened your eyes or gave you chills, give it a like to help more truth seekers find it. And if you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the mysteries we're digging up next are even deeper. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and question everything.